For most of the last century, the world has played a game largely by one set of rules, written and enforced by a handful of Western nations. But that era is over. So what makes 2025 the year it all becomes official? To get it, you have to see how one country, the United States, built an entire global order around its own power, and how the seeds of that order's decline were planted in its biggest successes. This isn't another story about a dramatic collapse. This is about a fundamental rewiring of the planet. It's the story of uncontested dominance ending and something far more complex and unpredictable beginning. We're going to cut through the daily headlines to show you the tectonic shifts underneath, the financial, industrial, and diplomatic earthquakes that brought us to this moment. A moment where the West is no longer the only architect of the global system, but just one of several competing designers. To understand why 2025 is such a critical year, let's rewind the clock to the end of World War II. Emerging from the rubble of global conflict, the United States, its economy booming and industries intact, did something no one had ever done before. It didn't just win the war, it designed the peace. It built a new world order on three powerful pillars. The first and most important was financial power. In 1944, at a hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, the world's leading economies struck a deal. They agreed to peg their currencies to the US dollar, which was in turn pegged to gold, as the US held the vast majority of the world's reserves. This didn't officially name the dollar the world's reserve currency, but it created the system that made the dollar's dominance a reality. It meant international trade, from oil to wheat, was now priced in dollars. It meant other countries' central banks needed to hold huge amounts of dollars to keep their own economy stable. This created a permanent, built-in demand for American currency. To manage this new dollar-driven world, the U.S. helped create the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. While their official mission was global stability and development, they also became powerful tools for spreading a Western model of free market capitalism, embedding American financial influence across the globe. For decades, if you wanted to be a major player in the world economy, you had to operate within this dollar system. This wasn't just an economic edge, it was an incredible source of power. The second pillar was military might. This financial order was backed by the most powerful military alliance in history, NATO. Led by the US, NATO formed a security umbrella over North America and Western Europe, and it was just one part of a global network of American bases and alliances. U.S. naval fleets patrolled every major ocean, and its defense budget was larger than the next several countries combined. This military dominance was the ultimate insurance policy for the Western-led order. It protected trade routes, enforced alliances, and sent a clear message: challenging the rules of the game would be incredibly costly. The third pillar was diplomatic and cultural influence. The West, led by the U.S., shaped the institutions of global governance. With a permanent seat and veto power on the UN Security Council, it could approve or block international actions. Through its universities, movies, and music, what's known as soft power, it exported its values of democracy, free speech, and consumer culture. For much of the 20th century, the American dream was a global aspiration, and siding with the West seemed like the only ticket to modernity. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, these three pillars looked stronger than ever. It was the unipolar moment. Some even declared it was the end of history. There was one superpower, one economic model, one set of rules. The Western-led order wasn't just an option, it was the only game in town. But even as the West was celebrating, the world was already changing in ways that would slowly chip away at the very foundations of its power. So, if the system was so dominant, what went wrong? The old order didn't break down from a single blow, but from a series of tremors that slowly weakened its foundations. The first of these was the explosive rise of the rest, powered by one country in particular, China. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. Western leaders celebrated, convinced that welcoming China into the global capitalist system would make it more democratic, more like them. This turned out to be one of the biggest miscalculations of the century. Instead of the system changing China, China used the system to change itself and eventually the world. It became the factory of the world, using its massive workforce to produce everything from smartphones to solar panels at a scale and cost the West simply couldn't match. Millions were lifted from poverty as its economy soared. But this boom didn't bring political freedom. The Communist Party stayed in charge, pioneering a new model, state-led capitalism that directly challenged the West's free market ideals. The West had hoped to create a partner. It ended up creating its most powerful economic rival. The second major tremor was a crisis of trust. In 2008, the global financial system, with its heart in New York and London, came crashing down. The collapse of Lehman Brothers sent shockwaves around the globe, sparking the worst recession since the Great Depression. The myth of flawless Western financial stewardship was shattered. For emerging powers like Brazil, India, and China, it was a brutal wake-up call. Their economic futures were hostage to a system they didn't control, one that had proven to be reckless. The crisis didn't kill the dollar, but it planted a deep seed of doubt. It was the moment the rest of the world started seriously looking for a safer way to do business. The desire for independence was then supercharged by the third tremor, the weaponization of power. The dollar's dominance wasn't just for convenience, it was a tool. Because global finance flowed through U.S. banks, Washington could cut countries, companies, and individuals off the system with sanctions. For years, this was used against smaller nations, but after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, the West did something on a scale never seen before. It froze hundreds of billions of dollars of Russia's central bank reserves. This sent a shockwave through the world of international finance. The message to every other nation was chilling. Your foreign reserves, your country's financial safety net held in dollars, aren't truly yours if your politics clash with the West's. Now, let's be clear, this did not cause a mass panic and a stampede away from the dollar. Recent IMF data shows the dollar's share of global reserves has been sliding for 2 decades, but the change is gradual, not a collapse. As of mid-2025, the dollar still makes up around 56 to 58% of global reserves and is used in nearly 80% of all foreign exchange trades. Its role is deeply embedded in the plumbing of the global economy. But what freezing Russia's assets did was make de-dollarization a mainstream conversation. It went from a fringe economic theory to a core strategic goal for many non-Western nations. This wasn't just about economics anymore, it was about sovereignty. Countries that often disagreed, like Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and India, started openly talking about the need for alternatives. They started speeding up plans to trade in their own currencies and build payment systems that bypassed the Western-dominated SWIFT network. The weaponization of finance didn't break the system overnight, but it gave many nations the final push they needed to start building a parallel system. And that brings us to 2025. This isn't a year of sudden collapse or a dramatic changing of the guard. It's the year the new reality becomes undeniable. It's the year the West has to accept it's no longer the only one writing the rules. The world is now, without a doubt, multipolar. This means there isn't one center of power, but several. The U.S. is still the most powerful single nation, but it's less dominant than at any point in the last 3 decades, tied down by internal divisions and the hard truth that it can't run the world alone. Alongside it stands China, a peer competitor with its own massive industrial base and growing military. You have the European Union struggling for what it calls strategic autonomy, an effort to build its own industrial and military power so it doesn't have to depend on Washington or Beijing. But that's easier said than done, with internal arguments and economic headaches getting in the way. And crucially, there's the rise of the middle powers, or the global south, nations like India, Brazil, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia. They're no longer just following along, they're actively shaping the global order to suit their own interests. This new reality is taking shape in new organizations. The most talked about is the expanded BRICS group.
Originally Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, it has now grown to include major energy players like Iran and the UAE, alongside Egypt, Ethiopia, and Indonesia. Now let's be clear about what BRICS is and isn't. It is not a formal military alliance like NATO. Its members have clashing interests. India and China are rivals, and Brazil works hard to balance its ties with the West. But what unites BRICS is the shared goal of building a world not dominated by a single bloc. They're a platform for creating an alternative financial and diplomatic architecture. At the 2024 Kazan Summit, leaders reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening multilateralism and increasing the use of local currencies in trade. They've been pushing forward with initiatives like BRICS Pay, a payment system designed to reduce reliance on the Western-controlled SWIFT network. These aren't just symbolic gestures, they are deliberate constructions of parallel systems in finance and technology. Similarly, at the 2024 SCO Summit in Astana, leaders from Russia, China, India, and others endorsed a vision for a multipolar world order and adopted strategies for deeper economic and security cooperation through 2035, independent of Western oversight. China is also actively promoting its Beidou satellite navigation system, which now sees massive daily usage as an alternative to the American-controlled GPS. This has trapped the European Union in the middle of a complex triangle with the US and China. Brussels is squeezed by American security demands on one side and its deep economic reliance on the Chinese market on the other. This has forced the EU to chase strategic autonomy, an effort to build its own industrial and military power so it doesn't have to depend on Washington or Beijing. But that's easier said than done, with internal arguments and economic headaches getting in the way. So where does this leave the dollar? Its reign as the world's primary reserve currency isn't ending in 2025. Alternatives, like the Chinese yuan, don't yet have the trust or the open financial markets to replace it. But the dollar's uncontested dominance is gone. We're seeing a slow but steady increase in countries trading directly in their own currencies. India and the UAE are doing it, as are Russia and Iran. These are small steps, but they signal a systemic shift. The world is moving from a dollar-centric system to a multi-currency one, where the dollar is still the biggest player, but no longer the only one on the field. Its share of global reserves has already slipped from over 70% at the start of the century to around 56 to 58% today. It's not a crash, but a steady erosion. 2025 is the year all these threads come together. It's the result of China's economic rise, the lingering distrust from the 2008 crisis, the backlash to the weaponization of finance, and the formalization of non-Western blocs. The West hasn't lost control in the sense that another power has grabbed it. Instead, control itself has been scattered. Power is now fragmented, shared among multiple poles in a world that is more competitive, less predictable, and fundamentally different from the one we've known our entire lives. So 2025 isn't the year the Western-led order falls apart. It's the year it officially wakes up to a new reality, a world it can no longer run by itself. The unpolar moment is a distant memory, and the old rulebook has been tossed aside. The era of a single dominant power setting the agenda is over. We've entered a messy, complicated, multipolar world. For decades, the world played a game where the West was both the star player and the referee. Now, other powerful teams have taken the field. They're building their own stadiums and writing their own rules. The biggest question is no longer who's in charge, but can these competing power centers actually work together on the challenges that threaten us all, from climate change to AI? The stability of the 21st century could very well depend on the answer. This is one of the biggest global shifts of our lifetime, and the story is still being written. What do you think? Is the West adapting to this new reality, or is it in denial about its changing role? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to keep making sense of our rapidly changing world, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our future.